left-handed.
I'm left-handed, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to push on our rights, guys.
Ready to go.
Three chairs.
It's rolling. We'll just clip it.
Okay.
It's
I'll wait for you guys to sit down. We'll check people in again after we wrap up.
Taxpayers dollars of wasting this nonsense. Probably a ton.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes, everyone. How's everyone doing? Everyone doing good? My name is Michael Monroy. I'm the Coalitions Director for the Libre Initiative Virginia. And I thank you for being here at our Policy Forum for Trust as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. At Libre, we salute America's Latinos for helping to make our nation a success. We're workers, families, veterans, teachers, students, people of faith, and so much more. And we love our country. So before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to show a video featuring Libre's president and founder, Daniel Garza. So I'm going to ask you all to look at our two TVs on both sides of the room.
My name is Daniel Garza, and my American experience started off here. I grew up picking crops with my family. My parents were immigrants from Mexico with nothing but a fourth grade education. We were so poor. My siblings and I would often miss school to work in the fields. Our home was the size of a tool shed. Had no running water, and what we would do is warm buckets of water on the stove so that when my parents returned from work in the fields, they would bathe with small cups. My father never took welfare because he didn't want to depend on anyone to produce his dignity. He is a proud and noble man.
You can make it with just three things: God, good credit, and freedom, liberty to work. And that's what the United States is.
I didn't know it at the time, but my father began saving money and buying and selling small properties. He bought a motel with the profit he made. My family and I spent long hours fixing up that motel while still working the fields. My father continued to buy and sell property, and one day he and my mother retired with enough money to live comfortably for the rest of their lives.
If I don't come to the United States, I don't think I have the life that we got right now. Living so good,
My parents' American dream had become a reality. My family and I have succeeded by following the path to freedom. But that path is on the verge of vanishing. What we're starting to see here in America now is a growth in the size and the scope of government that is now starting to look like the governments that we left behind. I'm just torn apart when I see folks who are caught in this dependency that government offers. And not only that, they've condemned their children to a life of mediocrity and subsistence. That this is not the American dream. This is an American nightmare. The Libre Initiative is reaching the Hispanic community before they are lost forever. We know advancing economic freedom is the best way to improve human well-being, especially those at the bottom. And that's our message to the world. One day I was speaking before a group of 150 evangelical Hispanic ministers in South Texas, and a man stood up. He had tears in his eyes and said, I've never heard these things before. Why has nobody told us? Most Hispanics have never even heard about economic freedom, but they know it. Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico, Hispanics leave countries that have been ruined by tyranny to come to America, the land of the free. They don't just believe in the cause, they've lived it. It is a privilege to live in the United States because this is a nation where you dictate your destiny. No other nation has fulfilled more dreams and more aspirations than this country. And to have been born here, I'm just grateful to God for that.
Learn how you can get involved at joinlibre.org.
So, founded in 2011, the Libre Initiative is a nonpartisan, nonprofit grassroots organization that advances the principles and values of a free and open society to empower the U.S. Hispanic community so it can thrive and contribute to a more prosperous America. Our mission is to equip the Hispanic community with the tools that they need to be prosperous. We are committed to developing a network of Hispanic pro-liberty activists across the United States so that our message reaches every corner of the country. And so with this forum today, we seek to build trust between the Virginia Hispanic community and community leaders while talking about solutions that break barriers and create opportunities. And so with that, I want to introduce our panelists today. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I want to introduce first United States Air Force Colonel Rich Anderson, who's a former member of the Virginia House of Delegates. Give him a quick round of applause. Next, I want to introduce Michelle Zahur, who's the CEO and the founder of the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Quick round of applause. Then we have Willie Deutsch, who's the Prince William County School Board member. Round of applause. And then finally, we have DJ Jordan, who's the former chairman of the Virginia State Board of Social Services. So, quick round of applause. So, for this forum, we want to talk about some issues that we think is very important for the Hispanic community. Again, the theme here is that we're trying to break barriers to prosperity. We want every Hispanic in Virginia and in the United States to be able to live their American dream. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of policies that stand in the way, in addition to skills and things that they need to better improve their lives and their families' lives. So today, I want to use this forum to talk a little bit about economic policy, a little bit about immigration policy, and then finally a little bit about education policy. And the distinguished panelists we have here today, I feel like represent a good mix of the community. Obviously, all these gentlemen here are leaders, and I think they can provide some good perspective, perhaps from the local, the state, or the national level on some of these policy areas. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about the economy. So we're closing in on 1 year since the passing of historic tax reform. So my question for the panelists is, how do you think this has impacted the Latino community? And I'll leave it here for if anyone wants to take that first question.
Well, I'll start and just say you can see the impact on the entire nation on the unemployment rate and the economic growth. I mean, if you look at the GDP rate, the last GDP, I believe, was 4.1%, which is very, very good. And so that means more jobs, more economic activity. But even when you look at the unemployment rate, we're at 3.9% right now. For the Hispanic community, it's 4.5%, which is among the lowest that it's been in a long time. For the African American community, the unemployment rate is 6.3%, and that's, the second lowest that it's ever been in history. The first lowest was in May, which was 5.9% ever. And so you're seeing some record numbers with the economy, and I attribute that to tax reform and regulatory reform.
I think that you are seeing the numbers increase in business is better for Latinos and workers, and so I think the climate is changed. It's people are, they say a lot of times when the economy is bad, and we're going through the bad economy, that when the United States catches a cold, the Hispanic community catches pneumonia, and I think we're seeing the opposite now happening too. I think with businesses doing a lot better now.
just echo what these two gentlemen have said. We see positive momentum. The real measure, of course, will be not in the short term, but in the long term. But as we begin changing national economic policy, deregulating, starting this journey of deregulation and those other things, I think you saw the job situation and the economy begin to recover in a very significant way. In other words, we're doing it differently. There's an old saying, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And I think we're doing something different now. A real measure of success will be in the long term if these policy changes have staying power in rejuvenating this American economy and opening the doors of opportunity to all demographic groups.
Yeah, and following up to that, to throw in some statistics into this conversation, the most recent report from the U.S. Census Bureau shows that median household income in the U.S. has increased for 3 consecutive years, and that according to the Bureau from 2015 to 2017, the average household income for Hispanics has increased from $65,818 to $68,319. So, that's a considerable increase there, and I think that's good news for the community overall from that perspective. And so, when we're seeing that tax reform has allowed folks to keep more of their hard-earned money, and confidence has been high this year for consumers and small businesses alike. Would you say that this confidence could be attributed to recent economic gains from tax reform, or would you say regulatory reform, or overall pro-growth policies?
I don't know if it's, I think when business does good, and I think some of the regulations that have changed have really helped businesses, do business. And that's what businesses do best. They want to do business. And sometimes if you make it so complicated or hard for these businesses to do business or to compete, it just puts obstacles. A lot of countries, don't have the same regulations as the United States, giving other countries a competitive edge. We have to have regulations. But I think regulations that are beneficial to the overall community and not overtaxing business where they can't do business. So I do think some of the regulations has spurred business growth in the community.
My father was a small business owner when I was coming up, so small business growth and things like that to me, was very personal because it literally put food on the table. And my father would always tell me that if he had more ability to take risks and to do things that he wanted to do with the business without being held back by state regulations or federal regulations, then he could grow more. And I think we've definitely seen that. I used to work for the United States House of Representatives Committee on Small Business. I was there for 4 years, from 2012 to 2014. And when we had small business owners come in and testify at our hearings, during that time period, the regulatory scheme, the government environment was very different. So a lot of small business owners were uncertain about what the future would be, what the tax policy would be. And so they would pull back and they would just wait. They would wait to see what the next election was. They would wait to see what different policies were going to be. And that was right after the recession, the Great Recession in 2009.
Hi, sorry, real late.
You're fine. Just one other statistic. After the recession ended in 2009 until last year, the average GDP rate was about 2.1%. And you compare that to what it's been over the last year. Our last one was 4.1%, like I said before. The one before that was about 3%. So you see that the economy is definitely ramping up over the last year and a half, and I think the tax reform has a lot to do with that.
Let me just add one thing. After graduating from college, I spent 30 years in the United States Air Force. So I was in government service in a military uniform. I wasn't in the private sector. I had not been engaged in operating a business, making a payroll, and doing all those things that create jobs and make its contributing part to our economy. So when I retired in 2009 and ran for the Virginia House of Delegates, one of the first things I did was I affiliated with the Prince William Chamber of Commerce. Why? I was a center of excellence for business in Northern Virginia and Prince William County. And so I used that as a learning lab, as an opportunity to learn from practitioners of the art, from businessmen and women right here who had to labor under these restrictive regulations, tax burdens, and a whole host of things. And so, although I myself was not a practitioner of the art, I studied at the feet, if you will, of those who did. And what I heard was the very things that we're hearing the others talk about tonight. The National Federation of Independent Businesses, NFIB, which represents here in Virginia over 7,000 small and independent business owners. I hear the same things from them. So that testimony tells me that we are moving in the right direction as a country and as a commonwealth. And that's why we're seeing these improvements in the economy.
Yeah, definitely. And I also want to talk about entrepreneurship. The Hispanic community is inherently very entrepreneurial. We start small businesses a lot. We see this with over 4 million Hispanic-owned businesses across the country, and a startup rate of 2 to 1 compared to the general population. What do you think? What do you think it is that this is responsible for? What policies can be advanced to ensure that entrepreneurs are not hindered by government-imposed barriers to opportunity?
I think Latinos are that come here to the United States. They take a risk. Immigrants take a risk to come here to the United States, and that's what a lot of business is. Business. When you're in business, you take risks. So you're a risk taker. So I think they have that going for them. They take risk in starting a business, and it's 2 to 1. It was 3 to 1. Latinos were starting businesses. Very high average. I think that a lot of times what we see, some of the obstacles are they navigating the system. There's a lot of language and cultural barriers. The Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we work to break down those barriers because and a lot of the workshop seminars, we try to do them bilingual, but able to help them navigate the system because a lot of times they come and they just, or where do I gotta go? So I think it's really important to help them navigate the system. I think, guiding them to better network and to make sure they're at the table, have the opportunities. You have Jorge here, just a wonderful example of what he did to start his business and the growth that he has taken place. Major defense contractor, and but it's people like Jorge that are making a difference. And the Hispanic community, just in Fairfax, Fairfax County, and we're in Manassas, but Fairfax just alone, just to show you, if it were a state, it'd be number 9 with the highest percent of Hispanic Fortune 500 companies. Hispanic companies are making a big contribution to the economy of this state and our nation. And but I think a lot of the startups there, we need to get them to a level like Jorge's business.
I'm not Latino, but I am very close to a lot of Latino families and immigrant families, and especially in a place like Prince William County, we're a majority minority county. We have immigrants from literally all over the world, and the immigrant spirit is one that is very hardworking and, like you said, willing to take risks. And you see that in a whole lot of different areas within the community, in ministry as well. And I want to give a shout out to Pastor Juan Hernandez, who is here, who is a pastor of Manassas of Iglesias Vida and his church is teaching entrepreneurship to a large congregation of Latinos that are doing fantastic things. And it's that spirit that I think causes the community to be so successful. And it's that spirit that America should be welcoming with open arms.
Yeah, in talking about entrepreneurship, talking about small businesses, how, the Hispanic community is they have a star of spirit in them. Small businesses obviously has something to do with the global environment. They do business with other countries, and so trade, I imagine, is something that affects the Hispanic community directly, as it does other businesses. So I want to talk a little bit about trade in NAFTA, and in particular, it's been very important for our economy. Virginia entrepreneurs and consumers are currently having to worry about rising costs and uncertainty over tariffs, the future of NAFTA, and escalating trade wars. So my question for the panelists is, how important is it to solve these issues? How vital is free trade to the Latino community in Virginia?
So just really quick, free trade is actually what this country was started on. There are actually a bunch of rebel farmers that said our tea is being taxed, our imports are being taxed, and they're like, we're going to have none of it. And they went to war to make sure it stopped. So America has actually started on the idea of free trade, freedom for businesses, freedom for entrepreneurs, and that's part of who we are as Americans. Just one thing as we talk about the economy, we've seen a deficit in skilled people to fill the number of blue-collar jobs we have in the region especially. Whether it's plumbers, welders, construction workers, right now, there are more road projects available than we have crews to go and build them. The money and the time isn't the problem, it's finding the companies, because there's more work than people. And one of the things that I'm on the school board, and we do a lot as a school division to help train people to be ready for the jobs of tomorrow. Not everybody's going to go to college, and college doesn't make sense for everybody. Go for a 4-year degree, you come out with a whole lot of debt, and go get a job making 30 or 40 grand a year. The equation doesn't necessarily make sense. But we've got partnerships with NVCC. We're doing HVAC training. We've got people graduating with certifications as car mechanics. I was over at a place we're doing welding. All kinds of incredible skills that prepare people for the jobs of the future. And I was talking to kids who are like, yeah, some of my friends are giving me a hard time for not going to college, but I'm in high school right now and I already have a 401k going. They're like, so take that. And it's thinking about the future in terms of skills that are going to prepare you to start your own small business. Those are incredible opportunities to take advantage of, and something we're going to keep expanding here in the county.
The NAFTA free trade agreement, I think, is a very important agreement. I think, like right now with the trade wars, like you said, the United States, it's based on, part of it is free trade. But I think with China, like, there's an issue that China is building a whole infrastructure. When we do trade with China, and they buy a lot in China, when you're talking about NAFTA, what's so good about NAFTA is they can do parts that they can't produce here in the United States. They can produce there a lot cheaper, bring it here, assemble it, or there's a lot of advantage between NAFTA, between Mexico and Canada, that we should fully take advantage of. And I sure hope that that doesn't go away, because I think it benefits the United States, it benefits our neighbors much more. I think it's a big plus, and I think the president realizes that too. With some countries, I can see that we need to renegotiate better deals because they're taking advantage of us. And so you want to make sure you're fair, but especially for the Latino community with NAFTA, I tell everyone, you know, that can do business internationally, that's where you would need to focus some of your attention to. 95% of the business is gonna be taking place, not here in the United States, it's outside the United States. And countries all over the world are going to Latin America to build these relationships. The United States should be at the front of the pack to take advantage of the wonderful opportunities that they have, especially the Latino community. When you understand the language, the culture, you have connections there, it's a great opportunity to take advantage. So I really hope that you know, the agreement, you know, stays in place. And I think Canada, you know, is a very important partner too. I was just there a few weeks ago, and I can't imagine, you look around everywhere and there are just 50 cranes, you know, 80 in Toronto, he's building 80 stories. Immigrants are coming all over to exactly to fill these positions they can't fill. And you know, so bringing immigrants to if we can't, and we need to grow our talent with here already that's in the United States, especially in the Hispanic community. But I was just amazed, just coming back from Canada, the amount of immigrants moving there to fill these jobs that they can't fill.
Yeah, so Michelle and Will, you guys talked about unfilled jobs. And so the latest jobs report from the Department of Labor shows that we have 6.9 million unfilled jobs in our current economy. And so I want to use this as a transition to talk a little about immigration policy. So as you all know, may know that Libre Initiative is leading the way on immigration policy within the Hispanic community. And in particular, we really feel strongly about the children who were brought here by no fault of their own under the DACA program. So we believe that there should be a permanent legislative solution that brings certainty for dreamers and security for our borders. And you know, these children that are brought here, you know, they're students, they're serving in our military, they're trying to plan their lives, and there's unfortunately a lot of uncertainty around that. You know, these are potential people that could fill the jobs of tomorrow, the jobs in technology and STEM and all the other areas that we talked about. So you know, on the issue of DACA specifically, you know, just curious, why is it important to have a permanent solution, perhaps instead of continual extensions like we're seeing right now with a lot of the court cases that says one thing and the other court case decision says the other thing. Just curious if we could talk a little bit about that topic. Anyone that would like to take that?
You know, even broader than DACA, Congress has absolutely failed on the issue of immigration. I mean, I'm a Washington Redskins football fan, and there's nobody who, you know, there's nothing that has had as much, you know, just inefficiency and that's Congress. I'll almost compare it to, you know, Redskins have lost for a long time, and the Congress, they're not taking on the tough questions and tough issues that need to be addressed. And that's one thing that is most frustrated me with our Congress is being so partisan and that they can't come together and come up with some type of solution. But and this DACA issue is one of the latest byproducts of that. But children who came here through no fault of their own is like a police officer giving a speeding ticket to the child in the back seat in a car seat. It's a basic issue of fairness. It's a basic issue of justice as well. And this is something that needs to be fixed ASAP.
Let me speak to that. I have always felt, since this became a national issue of discussion, and it has state implications also. I mean, I saw this as a member of the General Assembly over 8 years. I think we've got to tackle this, address it, and resolve it. Because a child brought here with under no volition of their own and have been raised here, I mean, all of you know this better than I, view themselves as an American. They think, they act, they live as Americans, certainly with their form overprinted or overlaid with their, the former culture from which they came. They learned that from their parents, but they're still Americans in their view. And so I think that the compassionate thing, we've got to resolve this and figure out how they can see people. On the broader issue of immigration, I think we need to encourage legal immigration to this country. Those who wish to be legally present in our country, and perhaps, not perhaps, definitely, a merit-based system where people come here with the skills that we need to continue this march that we have as Americans. That's the reason we're the greatest country on the face of the planet. And so I think that we've got to address these things. We've got to do so without further delay. When we have a new Congress in place, I think that is the time when they have to move and do these things. One of the things I liked about the Virginia General Assembly was we didn't engage in this kind of stuff. Certainly during our elections, pretty spirited events. But once a new General Assembly is elected, we went to Richmond, reached across the aisle, and certainly we had dust-ups, but we usually found the solution to the myriad of problems, the vast majority of those problems confronting Virginians. The American Congress, the national legislature, hasn't shown the same sort of discipline.
Just, so Prince William County Schools is committed to educating everybody who's here in the county, and that is what we do. One thing on this national discussion, it's a disservice to people when things are solved either through executive fiat or through the courts, because it creates this uncertainty. And there's nothing, we talked about earlier with the economy, now we're talking about with really children's lives. There's nothing that's worse than uncertainty. And so letting Congress have an out that, oh, the executive should fix this, or the court should fix this, only prolongs the uncertainty. And that's why laws exist, to provide the continuity. And it's got to be solved the way it should be solved.
Yeah, I certainly think DACA students, we need to get them that addressed. That's just a no-brainer. But I do think we need to have comprehensive immigration reform. I think on both parties they play on this issue for their own purposes. But I think I know that if you remember a few years back, Eric Cantor was running for re-election. The day of the election, he had a meeting, and I think there was a general consensus between the Republican Party that they were going to push for some comprehensive immigration reform. And in fact, the meeting with Hispanic leaders was at the election day in Washington. He thought he was going to win his district hands down, and he ended up losing. And I think the Republican Party saw that as that people were against immigration because he's running against David Brat, and I think it changed the whole sense of the direction of the Republican Party for a comprehensive immigration reform. I think that 11 million or 12 million undocumented people here. I think we have to resolve this. We have to secure our border, and we have to have legal immigration. That's without a doubt. We need that, and we should have that. But we have to address this issue. I mean, this is just something that we just, the way I look at it, for years, we have let people cross the border. It was like a blinking yellow light, because businesses needed workers. We needed workers, and we kind of overlooked it. But this is a workforce that is providing, the manpower to build this nation. And so I just hope that some kind of comprehensive immigration reform will take place sometime in the very near future.
and particularly frustrating for me is that this has been an issue that we know that people have come here illegally, and we, in many instances, have looked the other way, and in many instances, we benefited from their work and their labor, but not wanting to actually fix the immigration laws. And so I would just encourage everybody here or anyone watching on the video live stream, contact your members of Congress and tell them to get something done now. Put aside the partisanship. I get sick and tired. I've been on Capitol Hill for the last 4 years, and I was working for a senator who was trying to get something done. And there was more time spent about who would get credit for it than actually working on the issue. And then we had negotiation after negotiation where you would think that there would be some type of deal or solution. And then you'd meet the next day, and then the line would be moved yet again. And oftentimes it was because of groups on the outside that were putting so much pressure and noise to this conversation that the staffers and the members of Congress became cowards and stepped away from the deal. And so it is incumbent upon people who want change. It may not be a large comprehensive immigration bill. In fact, I don't think it will be. I think it will be smaller bills that address different problems in our immigration system. But it is incumbent upon us to hold our members of Congress accountable and continue to tell them to get something done and to get something done now, no matter who gets the credit.
Yeah, I was gonna ask everyone, what can we do in Virginia to advance this issue? You already alluded to that, which is contacting your member of Congress, and that's something that the Libre Initiative in Virginia is doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We have a lot of volunteers, we train a lot of activists, we educate them on policy, and we do a lot of phone banking, door knocking, and things of that nature to really move policy forward throughout Virginia and throughout the different communities that we engage. We talk a lot about immigration reform, and the fact is that we haven't seen meaningful reform in 30 years. It's a long time. I mean, we didn't have iPhone, we didn't have a lot of the things that we have. It's unbelievable how long it's been. The immigration system we have currently is not fit for the standards of the modern economy. And a lot of that we've talked about so far. We were talking about the economy, entrepreneurship, and everything else. Obviously, it has an economic tie to that. We've all talked a lot about that. And then, and just going really briefly back to the DACA is, the Libre Initiative conducted a poll recently, and we found that 80% of all voters are in favor of some type of solution for the folks that fall under the status of dreamers. And then amongst the Latino population, the numbers are even higher, 92%. So obviously, it's a very important issue not only for the Hispanic community, but for the United States overall. I think there's a lot of bipartisanship in favor of some type of solution. So Libre Initiative is doing a lot of work there. So this is great stuff. I appreciate your guys' input on this. I want to transition now to talk a little bit about education. I know Willie was talking about what's happening in Prince William County. We know that Latino populations across the country is continuing to grow, and that 1 in 4 school children are Latino. However, Latino families are often forced to send their children to underperforming schools. We're locked into sending our child to school based on our zip code, based off our neighborhood. And the Libre Initiative really believes in educational freedom. And so my question for the panelists is, what needs to be done to ensure that our country's future leaders have access to quality education that allows them to develop their unique talents and acquire the knowledge, skills, and values necessary to be successful and find fulfillment in their lives? I'll leave the question open for the panel.
So I'll just say, I think there is actually a lot of educational choice here in Prince William County. I think that's actually what makes our school division really strong. We've got 90,000 students, 100 schools. It's a really large school division, second largest in the state. And we have a very open transfer policy where people are able to transfer to different schools that offer different specialty programs that may be of interest to them, especially at the high school and middle school level with different things that are, attractive in terms of different things that are open to us. So, but we also care deeply for every single school, and we're working hard to renovate, to upgrade, and modernize all of our schools. But at the end of the day, It's actually parent, community, church involvement that's critical to the success of all of our schools. We had a school that a year ago, 2 years ago, was failing to meet accreditation here on this end of the county. And we have a really dynamic principal there who's, it's a very diverse population, a lot of people who are just very busy. But he's really re-engaged the community, and people buy into the vision and the mindset and are excited about coming to school. Their parents are excited about being involved, helping out, bring them. And they've really had a real positive vision, and they're really excited about what they can do together. And so I think we've got a lot of choice, and we have to believe in the opportunity for every single individual student, and make sure that they speak quality students.
When I was young, I was one of the weird kids who actually liked school. My favorite subjects were recess and lunch, and then sports. But yeah, Willie's right. You got to give credit where credit is due, and we actually have a decent, very, very good education system here in Prince William County. And in Virginia, when you compare that to other states, we're doing okay too. CNBC did a Best States for Business ranking. They do it every year, and it was released this past summer. Virginia was number 4 on the list of 50 in Best States for Business. And one of the biggest reasons why was because of ease to start a business, business regulation, and education and workforce. Education, we got an A for the state of Virginia. And, you know, politicians all the time want to dump on, you know, how everything is going to hell and whatnot. Our education system is actually pretty good. We can do some things better to improve educational freedom, and I like to call it educational diversity. It makes no sense that the government should tell you how your son can or your daughter can learn best. You should be able to dictate that. And our children are different, our children are diverse, our children learn in different ways. Some children do better in a homeschool environment. Some of our children do better in a bigger school, public school environment. There's a lot of alternative education techniques that are being used right now. Some people are using music. Some people are taking desks out of the classroom. We should want to encourage as much freedom and innovation and diversity in our school system in Virginia as possible. One thing I'm very disappointed in our state that we need to do more is reduce regulations on charter schools. We only have 9 charter schools in the whole state of Virginia. Only 9. If you look at so for example, Washington, D.C., guess how many charter schools they have? They have over 60 charter schools in the District of Columbia, which is what, 24 square miles. That's insane. Now, I don't think Prince William necessarily needs charter schools right now, but there are other parts of the state that are really struggling. There are parts of East End, Richmond, there's Petersburg, there's Norfolk, there's Portsmouth, there's some areas along the Appalachia that are really struggling. And they should be free, the parents should be free, and the community should be free to explore new innovation and ideas within education. And that's something that we definitely need to do in our state.
One of the things we have, I think, that is so good here in Prince William and Virginia is the capacity, and speaking of higher education now, is to pursue a degree program or to pursue career and technical education. Virginia's made some really big strides in career and technical education. We have a career and technical education office right here in Prince William County. We have schools, as Willie said, that specialize in various disciplines, and a student can pick and choose that which he or she is interested. But I think that those are really important. One of the things that I have heard leaders in state government say, from both sides of the aisle, both parties, both branches of government, legislative and executive, is let's not talk about degrees necessarily. I mean, if a student wishes to pursue a 4-year degree and beyond, that's good. However, let's talk about skill sets. How can those be acquired, whether it's in a 4-year institution or whether it is with career and technical education. Right here on the campus where we sit in Northern Virginia Community College and across the entire community college system, man, there's some great programs to acquire the skills, be certified, and go out and make competitive wages with full benefits here in Virginia. And so I think it's vitally important we do that. I think you alluded earlier to the fact that there are far more jobs than there are people to fill those. One of those areas is non-degree programs in cybersecurity. For 3 years, I was the military assistant to the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Technology Security, where cybersecurity played a key role. And I can tell you, those jobs are available and they're unfilled, and we've got to generate the necessary qualified people to fill those jobs here in Virginia.
Well, and the Western NBCC campus is doing a big expansion on that front. Battlefield High School is a program on that. So it's a lot of the jobs and growth here in the county.
I think education is such an important issue for the country, and especially for the Latino community. The Latino community has the highest dropout rate of any community, very high dropout rate in attainment to college. One of the issues is language and cultural barriers. A lot of students aren't fully speaking English, or they're raised in families that aren't speaking English, and they're behind the 8 ball. You know, if you're not in reading at 3rd grade level, by 3rd grade you're constantly behind. I know when I came here from Mexico, you know, my parents didn't speak English, and you know, it's just a struggle just to get help with homework or so forth. The Virginia Hispanic Foundation is an organization. They have a program called Passport to Education, and they bring mentors from, most of them Latinos, that go into the schools and work with the students, and it's really a leadership-based program. It's helping students have a vision of what they can aspire to be. And you're right, a lot of times it's not the 4-year degree, it's the coding, it's electrician, it's some great opportunities. But a lot of times these kids don't even have a vision of what they can aspire to be. You know, a lot of times they have early entry into the workforce to help their parents and survive. That's the way I was. I was working at 14, 15 years old in my family restaurant, and you know, a lot of times for some communities like the Asian community, very high educational ethics. A lot of times in the Latino community, it's very high work ethics, and we have to really push education back to our community. It's the future of the Latino community here in the United States. It's the future of our country, and so I know that Virginia Hispanic Foundation works a lot on this endeavor. I know we're going to start a program here in Prince William County, but I just think education, we really need to work together to make sure our country stays number 1.
Yeah, education's very important for the Hispanic community, but it's very important for the whole country. You know, I can speak for myself. You know, both my parents immigrated to this country from South America. Little English, working very hard jobs in order to give me better opportunities. And it was through those, you know, working long hours, working at nights, that my parents will, you know, really instilled in me hard work and to always get good grades. I liked recess and lunch too, but I also had to get good grades, and my parents would force that on me. They weren't hovering over me, but you know, it's through those examples of instilling that hard work ethic, of valuing education, that I was able to go to college, first in my family, and now I'm trying to give it back to the community by making sure that, you know, everyone has that ethic, that hard work, that education ethic in their family. That it should be instilled, or the whole Hispanic community should know that whether they find out about it through the church, or they, you know, whether they find about it through Libre or what have you, it's very important. So, and the policies that we're talking about will help break barriers for the Hispanic community in order to achieve their American dream. If their parents can't achieve it, let's hope that their son and their daughters can achieve their American dream in this country. And so, you know, the Libre Initiative is also doing a lot of work to break barriers when it comes to language. Michelle was talking about how a lot of folks don't even speak English. If you don't speak English, how are you going to get that job? How are you going to help your kids with their homework? So the Libre Initiative, through our partner organization, Libre Institute, is giving ESL classes in communities in Richmond and Woodbridge. We're teaching folks how to pass the U.S. citizenship class. We're teaching them about U.S. history, about the United States Constitution. And we're giving them a lot of skills, entrepreneurship, how to start your own business. The Libre Initiative, Libre Institute is doing a lot of work to give the community a lot of the skills that they need in order to break their barriers and then be able to open their minds a little bit more to learn about other ways that they can then take that and help everyone else in the community. So we're doing a lot of important work around all these areas, and I really appreciate everyone's input on this. Did anyone have any more comments on education or any other areas of that?
I just wanted to thank Libre, because I do think that you're out there and really the education that you're providing to the community is important. It's important for all of us to help in these initiatives. But thank you.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for everyone's leadership on this panel, what you're doing in the community. So I want to take this moment now to open up the forum, open it up to the audience. If anyone has any questions, I want to use this time to do a Q&A, and then after that we can all mingle.
Mine is not a question, but I was in a meeting, there were a lot of Hispanic business owners, and their main concern was about what would happen if TPS, because they have a lot of workers that they are on the TPS program, and if that is going to expire, how they're going to be able to get those workers that they are going to be losing. That's a big problem for a lot of Latino
We have
companies.
professional with TPS and a lot of business on that kind of temporary.
That is going to expire.
TPS is temporary protected status for like the Salvadoran community. Yeah. I don't know if anyone.
I don't know what the solution.
And there are like thousands of people. I mean, I have friends that have been on 30 years. I mean, I have a friend, Rosa, she has been in 20 years from El Salvador, and they have been waiting. I mean, they have been paying taxes, which, by the way, I mean, they have been paying taxes, but if they are deported, are they going to get their money back, for all those taxes they have been paying for the last 20 years? I mean, if they are going to deport them because they're going to be losing their status, are they going to get their taxes back? They have been paying to Social Security, they have been paying like everybody else.
Well, let me just say one thing. Go out on a limb, because I'm certainly not an expert on this issue. It's nothing that we tackle that within the General Assembly and what we do there. But I can't imagine permitting a crucial program like that to expire, simply because the business community depends on that population of people so deeply that there would be, I think, from the business world, severe pressures brought upon the Congress to renew that program. So I just can't imagine where that would be permitted to expire and go out of existence.
I could add a little commentary on that. I understand that temporary protected status affects a lot of Northern Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Big Salvadoran undercommunity. We all know that. Just speaking out loud for the Libre Initiative, TPS is an executive action. It was never a permanent law, right? Passed by Congress. So that goes back to the importance of why we want, not only for DACA, but for other issues, we want permanent legislative solutions that Congress passes and that becomes law. So whoever becomes president can't just, just, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it would be protected from the whims of the executive, regardless of who's in the White House.
Right. So, and executive actions are temporary, and unfortunately, right now, that's being revoked for that community. So, at the end of the day, we want to see some type of permanent legislation that addresses not only that community overall, because that's the only through comprehensive immigration reform we will address this community and that community, and that's a long conversation. That's not something that we can answer right now in this panel. But
I know, but I just hope I hope that you guys, since you have power, I hope that you say something, because it is not that somebody did it. It was done, and has
Right.
been being done for the last 20 years. So something has to be happen to those people and to the business like this. They're going to be losing a lot of business if they don't have the manpower that they need.
Yeah, so that's a conversation that we're having and we're trying to address. But it's very important for the community in Virginia.
It is very
Absolutely,
important.
yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Many issues about it.
Hey, I'll go.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't normally come to these things because I normally go to things at the federal level. But when the country re-enters, stagflation and ultimately hyperinflation, what do you think is going to happen? I mean,
Well, I haven't heard the word stagflation.
since the 70s.
Let's hope it doesn't.
Well, I mean, it's going to happen. So, I mean, I'm asking, what do you guys think we should do?
I don't think we've seen, we haven't seen a lot of economic indicators to say for sure that that's going to happen. I mean, the interest rate was just taken up. There are a lot of things that normally happen to stabilize the economy. We had this type of growth in the 90s, the late 90s, and we didn't have stagflation.
The late 90s went into the dot-com bubble, which then went into the housing bubble, which ended into the financial crisis. But,
So you're saying
we're going to
the
stagflation.
financial crisis of 2008 happened because the economy grew well.
From the
late
90s to the 2008 financial crisis was created by Alan Greenspan, and he's out there saying that we're going to stagflation. So what do you think is going to happen when we enter stagflation?
I don't see the economic indicators.
Alan Greenspan,
I don't.
the guy that ran the Fed for 20 years,
Yeah, I don't see.
since the 70s, or the 80s, something like that. I know it was like Paul
What do you
Volcker.
think's gonna happen?
Oh, what? Oh, well, we're going to go to hyperinflation. So, I mean, what do you think guys think we should do after that?
If you're sure it's gonna happen, you better invest in gold and,
Well,
you better
I
have
do
gold,
that.
you better have, food, you better have, commodities.
Yes, well, I do that. That's why, like I said, I
mean,
normally.
if that's your theory, you better have things to write it out.
Well, it's not really a theory. I know for a fact.
Well,
Like, absolute
I
truth.
guess I've had people tell me, like 3 years ago, people like, it's gonna happen in 6 months. Like, here's all the indicators, I'm already stockpiling and,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not seeing it right now.
Well, I can take on his comment, which I agree. America is moving so fast in its economic growth. It's like a company. My company can sell as much as I can, but what am I gonna do if I don't find the engineers that are gonna provide the services?
The laborers.
So that's gonna create, then I'm gonna have to tell my customers, I'm gonna have to double, triple up the prices. That's what's gonna impact it. So I was glad to hear that really you in your school system are really rebuilding, re-engineering the most, fundamental piece of the economy, which is education. To me, education, it's failing to the kids. There's $1.3 trillion in debt to kids that don't know why they even chose the career. I got involved in the school system because my daughter was supposed to be LD, and I found out it was a TD, teaching disability. Okay, so I'm so glad that you're mentioning that, because that's the biggest problem right now. I serve as an advisor to a major school and university that does basically try to get into the engineering, but there's no professors. I mean, the robotics, the AI, the economy is gonna boom. We are not gonna be able to support, unfortunately to say, those folks that are coming from other places that can only do labor force. They're being replaced right now by machines, robotics. So I think America needs to do what Prince William County is doing, reevaluating the curriculum from our schools, universities. I mean, our still kids out there that come to work. I'm trying to hire them. Look, what do you like? You like math, physics? But they didn't go to college, they didn't go to university. Say, look, there's a university that's free for you guys. It's called YouTube University. I've been crafting for them the curriculum based on that. And they're doing excellent right now. We're always constantly looking for cybersecurity engineers, automation engineers. We don't have it.
And Jorge,
We're backlog.
and going back to our panel's topics, immigration can help fill those jobs.
Yes, it will help us if we bring
different areas that we've
those
addressed.
guys that are basically talented to get that type of job, yes.
Jocelyn, you had a question?
Well, I just had more of an idea and wanted to throw it for the group. My mom's a small business owner in Richmond.
I'll tell you.
And I see that she, sort of struggles to connect herself to a larger community, as do most, people like us, like first wave immigrants. And therefore, I see her and my little sister sort of surrounded by a lot of misinformation on the policy issues that matter most at the local, state, and federal level, but also on resources. So she has a small business. She doesn't know that she can be potentially accessing the web, making use of social media to expand her business. So finding ways, as leaders in the community to sort of streamline some of that information. I don't know where we get most of our information outside of Facebook and the news right now. But I just really encourage us in this room to think of creative ways to sort of connect ourselves to a bigger community, whether it is through, joining a chamber and tackling the issues that you care about and following them closely. And well informed, or potentially through Libre we host more forums on specific issues. But that is something that I have noticed when I go back home, that I sort of find my mom just lost, and it's her and her computer, and she makes decisions based on that, and it's sort of scary because there are big problems that our community faces, and when we're not organized and we're sort of being bombarded with information from fake news, not to bring that up, but it sort of worries me. So opening that to the forum, if you guys have any ideas or any other groups that have already figured out a way to streamline information at the chamber, if there's specific business issues that you guys tackle, I think our community needs to be more plugged in.
And just on that, I do think it's important that we organize and help each other. The whole basis of starting the chamber is to pass it on, is to help successful people need to be involved to help people up the ladder. We have to help people up the ladder. There's a responsibility that if you have been successful in this country and been blessed, that you can help others up the ladder. And that's the basis of the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. How can we do this? And then coming together, because I think together, we can find solutions. And I think, working with Libre and the different organizations and churches, I think we hold a legislative summit every year for the Latino community. We need to really bring a lot of people to Richmond, so legislators have an opportunity to hear the issues. And a lot of times, it's just building the relationship with the legislators and really educating them too, because a lot of times, they're in Southwest Virginia, they don't even know, right, the Latino community. They don't have those we have to, it's our responsibility to be there, to be leaders in our community. So any way that the chamber can work to facilitate that, please count on us.
Yeah, just really quick, following up to what Michelle said, that's what the Libre Initiative is here for. We're in the community all year, and we're in different communities across Virginia. It requires us to go into places that other folks have never thought about going out into. And it also requires us to collaborate with groups like the Virginia Hispanic Chamber, faith communities, education communities, etc. All coming together to advance good policy and to educate the community at the same time. I think when we all come together, like Michelle was saying, we can really get a lot of these things done that we've been talking about during this panel on all these different areas. And again, we can kind of open up people's eyes and instill in them the hard work ethic, the focus on education, to do good for the community beyond that. I think this is a good start, and again, Libre is a partner for anyone who wants to do good, and obviously we don't want to partner with anyone to do harm. So we're here for that and more. Any other questions? Just Frank, you got a question?
I guess I had a simpler one this time. So, I don't want to blow minds over here. But you said you want to get immigrants to, read the Constitution. What do you think we should do to get people that are already here to read the Constitution? I mean,
Very
there's so many things that we do as a nation that are, obviously unconstitutional and obviously stupid and wrong. But people support it. So what do you think we should do to get people to read the Constitution, or at least hear about it? They've never heard about it.
Let me speak to that. To have somebody sit down, open up the Constitution and read it is tough. It's tough. However, I think what we have to do, and I'm going to put on a hat that I used to wear, and that is an invigorated curriculum of civic education in our public schools. For 8 years, I was chairman of the Virginia Commission on Civic Education. Right now, we have a very crowded and demanding curriculum in all of our public schools. And the tendency of that, particularly with science, STEM topics, it is crowding out a well-rounded and sound curriculum in civic education. Now, we have a cadre of civics teachers in our public schools that do great work. But there are huge challenges in instilling in our public school students a respect and understanding for the Constitution. So every year we did in Richmond a day-long event called the Virginia Civics Summit. We would bring in about 150 civics teachers from around the state. The commission, although I'm no longer a member of it, is going to do it again in November. I intend to be there. And we do have a cadre of devoted civics teachers around the state, and I think we've got to continue to emphasize those topics. It's just vitally important, not only to understanding the Constitution, but to creating the kind of dialogue we've had in this room tonight, and that is a civil dialogue that in certain places in our country right now has been severely eroded. Just my thoughts.
I would be willing to guess, I don't know for sure, but if you had a group of immigrants and a group of Native Americans, or Native Americans that are non-immigrants, if you had both of them take a citizenship test, I think the immigrants would do a whole lot better than your average American.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm with you.
So on that note, I want to conclude the forum. Thank you very much, everyone, for having one thing.
I'm very sorry. I've served on the State Board of Social Services, and one of my passions is children and education and foster care. And I was a foster parent for a while. I adopted from foster care, and I try to make an announcement whenever I can, just to get the word out, because people don't know. In Virginia, we have about 5,000 kids in the foster care system. 5,000. 10 to 15% of that is Latino.
Wow.
And by far, our hardest demographic to recruit foster parents are the Latino community. Our African American population is larger in foster care, but we have a better chance. We have a better chance of recruiting African American parents. We have a very hard time with Latino families as foster parents and adoptive parents. I know there's a variety of reasons behind that, but I would just want to encourage everybody just to think about that. I'm not trying to put pressure on everybody here. Not everybody's called to adopt or be a foster parent or something like that. But if you could help us raise awareness on this crisis, these children are really, especially Latino, are concentrated in 3 regions of the state. Right here, Northern Virginia, Fairfax, Alexandria, Prince William, Richmond, and Hampton Roads. Up here, it's the worst. So I just wanted to put that plug in everybody's ear.
Yeah, we appreciate that, DJ. Thank you for being here. Again, thank you to all our panelists for providing your insight on what's happening on the local, state, national level on these policy areas. Again, what we're trying to do here is break barriers and create opportunities for the Hispanic community and the greater Virginia community. We want a good community to live in. We want everyone to reach their potential, reach their American dream, and I think having these conversations is how we're going to start achieving that. So if you can all give a round of applause for our panelists. I also want to add that, again, we've talked about the economy, we talked about education, we talked about immigration. If you want to learn more about these topics, if you want to take action on these topics, like DJ was saying, calling your congressman, knocking on doors, really doing the groundwork that's required in order to make these ideas, put them into action. The Libre Initiative is the vehicle for that. So please get involved with the Libre Initiative. We're not the whole state. The coalition director, we have a great team. We have a great team of volunteers, some of whom are here today. And please join us. Invite your friends, your family, your neighbors. Let's grow our group and let's make some good happen in our communities across Virginia, because that's what we're trying to do. It's not, it won't happen if we don't have you join us and we have more people join us to do the good work that we've been talking about today. So I thank you all also for being here, and I gotta move the slide because I want to plug our Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, go to Facebook and search the Libre Initiative Virginia and like our Facebook page. And please invite 5 friends to like our page. That's how we're going to get our message out, and that's how we're going to get more people involved. That's how we're going to teach people the skills that they need, as we were talking about before. And you're a part of that. So, and as well, if you want to join our email list, go to the LibreInitiative.com. But if you want to know about our upcoming activities, events, the Libre Initiative Virginia Facebook page is where you're going to find it. And please feel free to mingle now. We still have a lot of food left. Some Mexican Coke, some water. So enjoy. If you have any questions, come to me. I'll give you my business card. I thank you all for being here. So thank you so much.